Hello everybody, it's Brian for GadgetUnit.com, and in this video I'll be reviewing the mophie Space Pack for the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 5S. This is the world's first battery case with built-in storage for those iPhones, and you can pick this up in both sort of a satin black or a glossy white for $150 from mophie.com. That's the 16GB model. The 32GB model is $30 more at $179. I would also like to thank Kevin for handing this off to me for review while at South by Southwest. So, the battery itself inside of here is 1700 milliamp hours, so Mophie says that that should be able to get you a 100% charge. During my testing, I was unable to achieve that. I was still getting respectable charges, but not 100%, more on that towards the latter part of the video. I don't have any retail packaging for this one, but I do have some of what you would probably get in the box, including your micro USB cable for charging and syncing, a headphone extension, because the headphone jack on the case itself is pretty recessed, so you're going to need this if you want to use any headphones that use odd-shaped plugs or large plugs for that matter. Then of course you're going to get the space pack itself. So obviously this is the satin black model, 32 gigabytes. The white model is actually a glossy finish on the back, and I think I would personally have gone with that one because I found the satin material on this black one to not really offer as much grip as, let's say, that glossy one would. I didn't actually get my hands on that one, but this one, when I'm using this, it makes your phone larger, so it's not as easy to hold with one hand. You have to be more cautious when you are using this with one hand because there's not as much grip on this particular model. So let's go ahead and install the iPhone 5S into the case. I usually slide it into the top portion first, like so. Push it all the way to the top, and then take your bottom piece and put that on, like so. And this is what the space pack looks like once it's actually installed onto your iPhone. Obviously, any type of battery case will add some bulk to your device, and as I mentioned earlier, it does make your device a little bit more difficult to hold with one hand, especially this satin black model because it just, at least to me, doesn't offer too much grip. It's still usable, you just have to be more cautious when using it with one hand, walking around or whatever. On the left side, we do have volume up and down buttons. They're pretty easy to press, but they don't offer as much feedback as without the case. You do have an actual switch for the silent switch. Easy to get to, takes a little bit of extra effort. In other words, it's a little bit stiff, but it does offer a nice click when you're actually switching it on and off. At the top, you do have a power button. It's pretty easy to press. You do get more feedback than the volume buttons, but I've noticed that your phone can actually move around ever so slightly up and down within the case. So for example, if I try and push the phone down a little bit, the power button won't be nearly as responsive because the phone's actually moved down a little bit. There's not as much pressure on the power button, so you're not going to get as much feedback when pressing it. So if I try and slide the phone up a bit, the button is much more clickier than before. On the front towards the bottom, you do have your Mophie logo, and you have a couple of openings for your speaker and your microphone. So the audio from your phone will actually come out through this speaker opening, and the audio that goes into your microphone will go through this opening. So this is good when you're watching videos because it's actually facing you rather than facing out the side of the phone. When you're holding it like this, you don't have to sort of cup your phone so that the audio is more louder and facing you. Here's what the camera area looks like on the back. Here's everything at the bottom once again. So in terms of design, it looks pretty good. It's simple. Obviously, it adds some bulk to your device, but that's par for the course for these types of products, and that's something that people who are looking at these are probably already aware of. So at the bottom, when we push the button, you'll get your charging indicator here. So each one represents 25%, 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. So I have between 50 and 75% capacity left within the battery itself. So to actually use this, all you have to do is flip the switch here to the on position, and your phone will begin to charge. You can see the output that it offers towards the bottom with this little jailbroken tweak here. So it has an amperage output of 1000 milliamp hours with a wattage of 5. You can see in the top that it is charging, so obviously this works for charging. So on to the main feature for this, which is the internal storage that allows you to expand the memory somewhat of your iPhone 5 or 5S. It's not going to allow you to install applications, and even when jailbroken, the actual flash storage isn't going to show up when you're jailbroken through an app like iFile, for example, which is a little bit unfortunate. It's not really Mophie's fault. They don't have to support that kind of thing. But if it did, you'd probably be able to put some apps onto it, symlink it over to the internal directories, and run apps from the battery pack. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. So you have to use an app called Space, which is free from Mophie. An update actually came out today at the time of this video, which offers some fixes and things like that. It does change a little bit the music. People were complaining previously that when you're listening to music on here, it doesn't actually play in the track order of an album, but the latest update does. So here is your main interface for the application. It says at the bottom, it just changed that it's scanning music, so it will go ahead and index everything for you. It'll show you artist, album, song title, your typical set of metadata for music. And in the bottom right, it'll show you your battery capacity. You could go ahead and tap on that and it will show you some more detailed information about the space that's used, how much you have left, and of course your battery level. Would have been nice if it would somehow obtain the actual battery percentage capacity that's actually within the battery itself, rather than just showing your typical 4 dots for battery capacity. Maybe that can come in a future update, not too sure. To me, that's something that if it was possible to add, they would have already. Maybe it's not just the way the particular hardware works. So again, here is the app. It's taking a little while to scan, and on that note, the performance of the flash memory in here isn't the fastest. It's only a USB 2 drive when you plug it into your computer. And some of my speeds that I noticed is that when you have it plugged into the computer without your phone actually in the case, you can still transfer files to it. I was able to get about 7 megabytes per second. When actually transferring content from the Space Pack, I was able to get about 26 megabytes per second, so that's much faster. So if you do plan on transferring large amounts of content to your battery case or the Space Pack, it's definitely going to take a while, so you want to just copy everything over, go do something else, come back, and hopefully it's finished. So back to the app. On the top left, you can see a camera, and this will allow you to take photos directly and save it to your storage on the Space Pack. You can also do the same thing with photos, or videos, excuse me. So you have 6 main areas here. You have photos, videos, music, documents, other files, as well as all files. If we go into the configuration here, you could go to the About menu. It tells you a little bit about your Space Pack, the hardware identifier, the firmware that it's on. The first time I opened this app, it asked to update the firmware, and the first time it actually failed. Don't know why, but the second time I applied it, it worked really quickly, and it upgraded the firmware just fine. You could register your product. That was a new feature added to this particular version. You could add a passcode lock. That's also new. So it'll allow you to lock the content first. Sleep mode is if you are just leaving this application in the background before how long it takes to turn off. Camera sync will allow you to sync everything that you have from your camera roll and copy everything to the internal storage on the Space Pack. I haven't tested this out. It would have been nice if it would allow you to automatically delete the content from your phone after transferring everything automatically. That might be an Apple limitation. This app does have a couple of bugs. They might be fixed in this version of the application, but some of the bugs I've noticed is that, as you can see here, it's not loading all of the thumbnail images for some of the photos that are on the Space Pack. It's loading them slowly. These in particular are really large photos. It looks like the bug's been fixed in this version of the app. But these ones that are slowly loading are large resolution, large files. So before it wouldn't load the thumbnails at all. Now it seems to be loading them just fine, so that's good to hear. So when you're browsing photos, it works just like it would through the Photos app. You could swipe through them. It looks like it's still trying to cache the other files, so that's why these are actually loading a bit slower. One thing that would have been appreciated is being able to double tap on a photo for it to zoom in appropriately. It doesn't do that here, as you can tell. People who have reviewed the app on iTunes have noted that that would have been a nice thing to see, and it definitely would have been. When you're looking at a photo, you can share it like you normally would through your typical social media or mail or messages. The thing is that when you share it, it actually has to copy the file on your Space Pack directly to the internal storage of the device. That, I think, is also an Apple limitation. That's just the way it is, to actually use the APIs for sharing files. And that goes for videos and other files as well. It actually has a size limit of 100 megabytes. So if you want to share a file that's more than 100 megs, it's not going to let you do it, unfortunately. Under videos, you can view videos. I do have some here to play. Not sure why it says it's an unsupported file format. I had some issues with this particular video on my Air It won't play in QuickTime, but it will play in VLC. It's just an MPEG-4 downloaded from YouTube, but here is a video. It plays just as you would expect it to. You can buffer or skim along, skip to different parts of the video without any problems. So those are videos. If I wanted to share it, it would actually copy this video file to the internal storage, and this one's about 50 megabytes, so I'm not going to do that. For music, let's take a look at that. It has a similar interface to what the stock music app is. It loads your album art from within the audio file itself. So you have artists here, albums, songs. One thing that would be nice is to be able to create playlists. Some people actually do load their entire music library onto the battery case, the space pack, rather than putting them into the internal storage of their phone. So it would have been nice to have more detailed control like that. So the app was stalling just a little bit there. I think that the app itself has room for the most improvement. The case itself works just fine, other than the fact that the phone kind of shifts just a little bit vertically. I think they could probably fix that. I think this is an engineering sample, so maybe the shipping ones aren't like that. So let's go ahead and play a song. Took a little while to load. You also have repeat options, shuffle options. You could favorite it, so when you go back, you could go directly to your favorites. When you are at the Now Playing interface, you do have your album art here, and for the background, it'll actually take your album art and blur it a little bit so that it's not just a solid white background. So it looks quite nice, such as this one. When you are playing back music, you could skip through the songs fairly quickly. There's not too much of a delay, 2 or 3 seconds. So if you want to share a song, you could do so, but like your music and your video, or excuse me, your photos and your videos, it'll have to copy the file to their internal storage first. And that's basically the music interface. For documents, it'll show you PDF files, Word documents, things like that. We'll just go ahead and open the press release for the space pack. That's just a PDF file. It loads instantly. You can share it or favorite it as well. And of course, delete it. One thing that would have been nice for this app is if it showed file sizes. So for documents, it just doesn't show file sizes. When you're looking at photos, you could really determine which ones are going to load quickly based off of their file sizes. Currently, it doesn't show that, which is a little bit disappointing. In other files, it'll show you files with extensions that don't fall into the other categories. Here I have an IPSW file for the iPhone 5S. I have a bunch of thumbnail files for, I think those came from Windows. All files is where you could view the entire file system of your space pack. So on topic of the file system, it's actually FAT32, so the maximum file size is 4 gigabytes. That's just the limitation of that particular file system. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So here's how I have the files organized. I have a couple of random videos. I have all of my music in the music folder. And then this came preloaded with all of the media files, so PDF files, images, things like that. When you're looking at photos through the All Files menu, you can't swipe between them, which is a little bit disappointing. If the app could detect that the file is filled with folder or photos, that you would be able to just swipe through them accordingly. But like I said, the app itself seems to have the most room for improvement. The hardware itself works fine. So with the app out of the way, let me go ahead and talk about charging performance. It'll charge your device fairly quickly, but I've noticed that when I've been using it, it didn't give me a 100% charge like they say. It has a 1700 milliamp hour battery as opposed to the 1570 milliamp hour battery within the 5S itself. I was able to go from 2% to 82% for an 80% increase, and just the other day I went from 10% to 84%. And it took about an hour to an hour and a half to get to both of those numbers before the actual case would die. So I'm not getting a 100% charge like they say, but it's enough to get your phone from dead to being able to use it the rest of the day. One thing to note is that once the battery dies, your space pack is not going to work, the internal storage. So as soon as the battery case dies, you won't be able to access anything from the space pack's storage itself. It would have been nice if there was a small emergency battery to keep that going, but so let's say you go from 2% to 82% and then the case dies, you will no longer be able to access your storage, even though your phone itself now has 82% battery life. So with the shortcomings that I noticed with the hardware itself and a lot of the improvements that can be made to the Space app, It's really sort of an early time period for this type of product. There is plenty of room for improvement for both the hardware and the software. Things should only get better in the coming months. If you do want to add storage to your device, if you have a lot of media for example, this has to be the most integrated option for you. Of course you could get Wi-Fi hard drives, but you just have to carry around a separate device and it's just not as easy or straightforward. This is, and it's going to cost you, but everything for the most part works pretty well. I wish that I was able to get more of a charge from the case, but it is what it is. And overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the space pack. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback about this or anything else, feel free to leave those down below in the comments area, but that's it with the video. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you all very soon.